Welcome to Star Kittens Media, where we discuss 13-sign astrology, or in other words, the true position of the planetary bodies in the night sky. Today, we will talk about the full moon occurring on Wednesday, April 24 at 11:48 a.m. here in New Zealand. And for those of you in the United States, it occurs on Tuesday, 23rd of April at 7:48 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. We will talk about the full moon in Virgo with the sun in Aries making a conjunction with Icarus. And then there is a spectacular event happening with a grand cross that involves Pluto in Capricorn and Vulcanus in Cancer. Then we will dive into a conjunction with Mercury, Chiron, and Venus in Pisces, and close out with a conjunction between Saturn, Mars, and Neptune. Let's jump in. Hey there, truth seekers. I am Sana, and joining us today, of course, is David, and we are going to look at the Virgo full moon. So, David, it is a very full-on configuration in the night sky. There is, of course, the moon in Virgo, the sun is in Aries, and today we will also talk about a pretty spectacular event that is a grand cross. So where would you like to start today?
Well, firstly, hi. And yes, I agree. It's a full on. There's a good description. So let's perhaps start with what I see as kind of the big picture, and then we can go into some of the specific astrological configurations or relationships between the planetary bodies. So straight off, I would say that the theme of this full moon is a tectonic, what we're calling tectonic shifts occurring in the substrate of humanity. So let's explain that a little bit. This is about the transformation of our core beliefs, both at an individual and collective level. The grand cross that you've touched on, which we'll dive into a little bit later, involves Pluto and Vulcanus, the sun and the moon. So there's a four-way setup there, and it's always interesting to talk about a grand cross because they're particularly rare at full and new moon. The difficult conjunction of Mars with Saturn and Neptune is also happening, and there's a lot going on there, but effectively this is leading to what I think is kind of a mass hallucination. It's foggy perceptions, crossfires of confusion. It's difficult to find anchors in such a setup where you have Saturn, Mars, and Neptune all conjunct. And my sense of this is that there's a lot of noise out there in the field. There's a lot of mis and disinformation about all sorts of subjects. We're at a inflection or tipping point, both again individually and collectively, where we experience a breakdown or breakthrough. And this, with the Virgo moon, the Virgo full moon, there's a lot of tension around our beliefs and mental constructs, what I call our cognitive map, or how we see the world, our ideas and concepts about our roles and responsibilities, particularly around the workplace, which is the Virgo energy, and how that affects our well-being. And I sense too, from looking at the detail of the chart, that there's what's emerging is both an individual and collective sort of rage and frustration that's coming out of suppression of human ideas, human creativity. And this has been going on for a long, long time, and we'll have a look at that too. One of the ways that I like to anchor some of these discussions is to kind of look at those broad pictures like metaphysics, which is our place in the world. A lot of discussion about that out there in alt media and on YouTube and various other blogs. What are our roots? Where do we come from? Our governance structures. These are the issues that are all in play right now. How we creatively express ourselves, and of course, the conduct and consequences, which is what I call ethics. There is pressure everywhere. A lot of tension in this full moon chart, again, individually and collectively, to perform, to change, to alter, and to adjust our worldview. So that's, I know there's a lot there, but we'll unpack it by piece.
And I would like to start because my sun is in Virgo, and of course there's always a lot of Virgo energy around this time of year for me, and my birthday is 6 months away. And this full moon is in Virgo. For me, Virgo, it's my, I like to have lists, and I like to have a plan, how to move forward, how to make things easiest in my life. It's an earth sign, but on the other side at this full moon is Aries sun, which is not a great combination. How do you see that combo playing out at this time?
Yeah, of course, in the 12 sign system, and for those who might be asking the question or new, of course, we're using the 13 sign astrology system. In the 12 sign, however, the Virgo moon is opposite normally a Pisces sun, and so you get a lot of compatibility between the energy of Virgo, which is earth, and the energy of Pisces, which is water. So earth and water are very compatible in astrology and just energetically. However, in the 13 sign, because of the way that the planets fall, at this full moon, we have a Virgo moon opposite an Aries sun, and that brings into play earth energy on the moon side, our emotional side, and of course, fire on the sun side. So let's just touch on those two, because that's not exactly easy energy to navigate. So on the moon side, of course, a Virgo moon is to do with earth and our physical experience through our emotions, how we emotionally experience physicality, how we emotionally experience the material world, how we emotionally experience our bodies as well. But this arrangement at the moment with the Aries sun opposite brings forth agitation. Many of us could feel overwhelmed and overcome by what's going on. The Virgo moon, as you mentioned, Sana, has its guardian, of course, is Mercury. So Mercury is to do with data collection and thinking, left brain, predominantly the archetype of the rational mind. So we're talking here about, with the Aries opposition and the sun, the potential to be really, really under pressure mentally. So what's going to be required to navigate through this is discernment and critical thinking. The Virgo moon, of course, is very practical, very ordered, as you've touched on, and likes to be organized. But the key, I think, is exercise, rest, connecting with nature, grounding exercises. Anything to do with really being in touch with Mother Earth is key at this time. And self-love, patience, and perseverance. That's on the moon side. And of course, on the other side, we've got the Aries sun, which is very much about moving forward. There's an intensity about an Aries sun that is all about moving forward now. There's no hiding with Aries sun. It, of course, is the first sign in the zodiac. And, I would describe Aries energy opposite a Virgo moon as being a little bit like a bull in a china shop. On the one side, you've got quite an aggressive and impetuous force in the Aries sun, and on the other, you've got this organization, very grounded, a lot slower on the Virgo moon. So we have a lot of tension between the energies. In making some notes and thinking about this, I had the term scorched earth come to mind, which is very much a description of what potentially can happen with an Aries sun and a Virgo moon. However, on a positive, we're talking about something emerging, something new coming forward, and it's foundational. Of course, this is the beginning of a 12-month solar cycle. So projects and plans that might have been developed under the Virgo moon, the Aries sun says it's time to put them in play and kick them off and get them going.
It's really interesting, in our house we have some very strong Aries energy and also strong Virgo energy, and you can definitely see the clashes happening. And it's, I think that grounding, whatever feels comfortable for you at that time, whether it's really connecting with your breath, with your prana, writing things out. I am doing a daily thing at the moment of writing things down, but you could go outside while it's still semi-warm here in New Zealand and Nelson and just really ground with that earth energy. And take time to just close your eyes and listen to the birds that might be coming close, or if you're in spring, there'll be the humming of the bees and the other insects. So it's I think that making the most of the beauty that is all around us, always, to take stock of where we're at. And we accomplish so much every day. So last blog, we also already spoke about this conjunction. So, but let's briefly touch on the Sun is still conjunct Icarus in Mars. What would you like to add on that?
Yeah, look, we've talked about the Icarus myth and the Icarus archetype in previous blogs, but briefly, the story of Icarus is where his father and Icarus as the son were held in captivity, and they were planning their escape, and they fashioned a set of wings from bird feathers and wax that they accumulated that enabled them to break free of this prison. Of course, this is all metaphor, and to fly high to their freedom. And the father said to Icarus, look, this will get us out of this captivity. However, the wings are not robust enough for you to fly close to the sun. And so the lesson there is that the son ignored the father's advice and his fatherly wisdom, and he did indeed fly high in the sky and close to the sun, and his wax wings melted, and he plunged to his demise in the Icarian Sea in the Mediterranean. Is said to be named after this myth. So it's quite well understood that Icarus energy is about taking calculated risks. And as you said before, the tension between the wanting to get going in areas and the wanting to plan a way forward is the Virgo moon, and being emotionally attached to those plans is a key to that as well. But Icarus is saying, look, take calculated risks. Yeah, sure, plan, but execute on that plan, whatever that happens to be for you. And there's lots of contexts for this. It could be in your personal life, it could be in a relationship, it could be at work, it could be a side hustle, whatever. There's, a health program, a meditation practice, whatever it is. So there's no kind of rules around that, but the key is to get going. Yes, it is to plan, but to execute on that plan, and be aware that overanalyzing, or what we call, of course, paralysis by analysis, is the warning here. So step forward, be bold, be confident, but don't wait.
Don't wait until it's too late. That's right.
Yeah.
So this grand cross. So we have the sun opposite the moon, as happens at a full moon, and then the sun and the moon both make squares with Pluto in Capricorn, and on the other side, so opposite Pluto, is Vulcanus in Cancer, and all these are all linked by square. So that's what is called a grand cross. And she's pretty volatile. You know, one of the planetary bodies is called Vulcanus. Eruption comes to mind. What can you share about this configuration?
Yeah, anytime there's a square relationship, followers of astrology, or even those new to astrology, a square is where planets are sitting 90 degrees apart, and it's a signal in the astrological chart that there is a tension between those two planets or planetary bodies. And it's a sign of action. So when we have a grand cross, there are 4 squares taking place and 4 planetary bodies involved. So that is a square on steroids, if you like. It's a very rare configuration to see at a full or new moon. Some individuals have that in their charts. It's difficult at best to navigate. So let's have a look at it kind of piece by piece. It's generally a signal of monumental change. It's a sign or an energy of not looking back, moving forward. It's in your face energy and unavoidable. So it's difficult to shy away from a grand cross energy, whether it's reflecting in the broader astrological picture, which we're seeing at this full moon, or if you have one in your own individual chart, you'll know that it's pretty full on. Let's have a look at the pieces of it. We've touched on the sun and the moon. Obviously, they're 2 legs of the grand cross. Well, the other 2 are Pluto and Vulcanus. So I'll start with Pluto. We have talked at length about the position of Pluto and how important this is for humanity as a signal of a tipping point. When Pluto is sitting at 0 degrees Capricorn, and the last time she was there was around 1776, and we've talked again previously about how important 1776 is, not only to the United States of America but to the world. And Pluto has come all the way back. She takes about 250 years, and so her position right now at 0 degrees Capricorn, but also as part of this grand cross, is pretty deep and meaningful. But what it activates is what we call the Plutonic pathway, which is a conscious ascension process that involves transmuting negative energies. So as I said in the intro, the key with this, with the Virgo moon, which is of course under the guardianship of Mercury, which is thinking and thought, which is beliefs and left brain, is that the transmutation process here is that sometimes those beliefs are not serving us. Sometimes they're out of date, sometimes they're worn out, sometimes they are misaligned with reality even. So the Pluto in Capricorn as part of the Grand Cross, a key piece to that is understanding that we need to transmute negative energies in our life. And we do that through self-reflection, through introspection, through mind mapping, through dream work, past life regressions, any information gathering process, self-assessments. So that's the key here, is that the Grand Cross is asking us with Pluto in Capricorn and a Virgo full moon to do some self-analysis and to write down where it is that our beliefs, our thought processes are holding us back, and then to constructively work to transmute those negative energies. And in doing so, another part of Pluto is that when we transmute those negative energies or negative thoughts, negative patterns, self-limiting belief patterns, habits, we can transform the situations and scenarios that are limiting our potential. So there's a really clear signal here that there's some work to do on ourselves. And when we work on ourselves, then that will affect the collective as well. So transmute negative energies, self-limiting thoughts, transform situations or scenarios that are holding us back. And that could be in work or relationships or our health or our mindset. And finally, we can transcend these beliefs, these cognitive biases. We can reconfigure our outlook. We can revitalize and renew our worldview. So that's a piece of the Grand Cross. And then the Vulcanus in Cancer, and I'll talk a little bit about the Vulcanus myth briefly. Of course, Vulcanus is immediately related to volcanoes. And when sitting in Cancer, we're talking about the metaphor of emotional energy that could erupt and come to the surface. And so what I've just talked about there is a Plutonic pathway or process to deal with some of our emotional and mental beliefs, some of our emotional and mental patterns, is to head off the potential for Vulcanus to explode, if you like, in our lives. But the Vulcanus myth is really related to mother-child relationships. The story of Vulcan was that he was born to a family that was very proud of its bloodlines, just put it that way. I'm being euphemistic, but Vulcanus was born and he was kind of considered by mum to be the black sheep of the family and the ugly duckling, if you like. And so he was pushed out. He became estranged from his mother. And that is what the Vulcanus story is about, is a difficult relationship between a mother and a son, but it's broader than that. It's really about mother and children. And when we're talking about Vulcanus and Cancer, we're referring to trapped emotions, deep or bitter resentments that come up in the family situation, particularly between the mother and children, and angers and fear, unresolved issues that need to be, as we've just touched on with Pluto, need to be worked through carefully and methodically, otherwise they're going to get really messy. And the Vulcanus Pluto relationship here, which is sitting opposite in the square, is about really revisiting the templates that we learned as children, particularly in that mother-son or mother-daughter relationship, and changing those energetic pathways and habitual responses where there's conflict in the family. You see, if there's going to be change at a macro level, if there's going to be change in the collective, it really starts in the home. And, you know, relationships that are difficult to navigate among them are the mother-son and the mother-daughter relationship. So the message here is take the opportunities if you can, if you have the courage of Icarus, the energy of Aries, and the planning of the Virgo moon. Take the time to work through some of these. That's what the energy of this Grand Cross is about. There is a positive tailwind there, and the time has never been better, really, to start to work on some of those relationships and working through the healing process, which involves forgiveness, some open conversations, some reality checks. But this is the key of the particular Grand Cross and some of the messages that are coming through in the astrological, in this full moon.
Yeah, what you just said, it's self-love, you know, it's self-forgiveness. It's for myself, it's been such a big part of my continuous journey of becoming a better human, really. And that self-forgiveness, self-love, not being too hard on yourself, you know, all those things that the paralysis by analysis can definitely plague me with, and I think many others as well. Our brains just keep ticking, and this needs to be done and that needs to be done, and if my kids would just do this or just do that, and it's just, again, finding that still moment and just accepting the situation as they are. and just be really proud that, you know, you've come such a long way. And I'm really saying this to myself. I've come such a long way of where I am now. But self-love, one of the planetary bodies to do with love is Venus. So I would next like to talk about the conjunction of Venus with Chiron and Mercury in Pisces. Again, we spoke about Chiron Pisces energy in the previous blog, but now we have this beautiful conjunction with Venus and Mercury.
Yeah, and we were reflecting, of course, in preparing for this conversation that this particular configuration won't happen again for potentially another 40 odd years, maybe longer.
Yeah.
Given the position of Chiron and how long that asteroid takes to circle the sun, we're talking, you know, potentially mid-60s into the 70s was the last time Chiron was here. And of course, Mercury and Venus move very quickly. So for them to be conjunct Chiron and Pisces in the late stages of Pisces, this particular setup is a window into our soul, and probably arguably the most fundamental wound that we carry as soul wound, or trauma that we carry as human beings. And it is to do with the Chiron archetype, is to do with the separation from source. I mean, it's called in astrology, and there are many references in the internet about Chiron being the wounded healer. But I go a little deeper than that, a little more nuanced than that, and say that when we first arrive in our incarnation, and of course, every human goes through the experience of being born in the womb, right? It spends 9 months or up to 9 months in the womb, and the developing fetus and infant sits in there, and of course comes life. It's and at the moment of birth, the umbilical cord, which is a metaphor for connection to the source energy of mother, gets cut. And the Chiron archetype refers to that alienation that we feel in our bodies and in our soul of being cut off from source. In this case, the metaphor is the source of the mother. The mother was the sustaining energy for the infant. And so we carry in our being, in our field, in our soul, this sense that we have been cut off and alienated from source. And the idea of navigating successfully the Chiron energy in our lives is that as we come to an awareness of ourselves as spirit having a human experience, we come to realize that actually we're not indeed separated from source. We just think that we are. And right now, as we navigate a difficult grand cross, and we navigate the Pluto and Capricorn energy and the Saturn energy as well, which is very strong, which is to do with the collapse of a lot of the structures that we understand in the world, such as politics, economics, social structures, environment, technological structures as well, regulatory and legal structures. All of that stuff that sort of holds us down is all decomposing and deconstructing, and that is throwing up for us on an individual level more and more of a sense of a cry out to, are we alone in the world? Are we alone in the metaverse? Where's God? Where's source? Where's the universal consciousness in this picture? And so that idea that we are separated from source is really vibrating very, very strongly, both through our soul, but also at an individual and collective level. So the position of Mercury and Venus here is very benevolent, given that. Insofar as the Mercury, and we've touched on Mercury, is the guardian of Virgo. The Virgo moon is where we have an emotional connection to our bodies. And therefore, this trauma is trapped both in our soul, but physically in our bodies. And the Mercury energy is about understanding where that is, which, and there are various modalities like emotional freedom technique, tapping, acupressure, acupuncture, which relate to spots on the body or organs in the body or places in the body. This is this Virgo moon energy where we hold some of that stress and that tension that is ultimately related to the idea that we've been cut off from the source of all life. So the Mercury part of this conjunction is about understanding and analyzing that, from a cognitive level. And the Venus energy, as you just touched on, is having some patience and some self-love, to be compassionate and to realize that this idea of a profound separation from source is something that some people never overcome. They feel like they have been abandoned. And in fact, the idea of making our way back and reconnecting to the source consciousness is part of the ascension process. And so what we're seeing here is very much a signal that this is important if we are to develop and to be grounded and not be swept away in all of the big changes that we've talked about before, that have been really pushed hard via the media and various other formats. We can be easily swept away in that, but it's time to go inward. It's time to reconcile that separation from source, and that comes back to developing, firstly, an understanding of the issues, but also then being patient, but ultimately leading to some kind of practice. And you talked earlier about grounding. It's very important for us to connect with the earth, to draw on her energy at this time, to make sure that we are really firmly rooted in reality, and we're not being too swept away. So there's a lot going on with that Mercury-Venus conjunct Chiron and Pisces. But also, as I said before, this we may not see again for another 40 or 50 years. So it's a very, very important time for us.
Yeah. And for me, it's even though we just spoke about paralysis by analysis, I think by using that Mercury energy of having a plan, of having a routine, rather, of not just meditate today, but actually take 5 minutes out every day. And then that is part of the self-love practice to then have that stronger connection with, whether you call it God, source, the universal intelligence, however you connect to more than we see with our eyes. It's so important, I think, by really realizing how important our own individual being is feeling has such a massive impact on everything around us. It's if you walk down the street and someone smiles at you, you can't help but smile back, right? And I think that is just an important thing to remember, that what we send out, it will come back to us as well. The other interesting configuration that's occurring at this full moon is Saturn, Aries, and Neptune. So Saturn is still sitting in Aquarius, which we've spoken of. And then also we have Aries and Neptune in Pisces. Very interesting energies. What do you think?
Yeah, again, in the 12 sign system, this probably wouldn't be occurring. I haven't looked to be honest, but just given the nature of where they are together, you've got three very, very interesting energies at play here. Of course, Mars, the planet Mars and Aries are, of course, related. So Mars is the guardian planet of Aries, and we started the conversation with the Aries sun. And it's very interesting that Mars is sitting here conjunct to Saturn and Neptune. This is a stop-go experience, and it's a mix of energies where on the one side, so Mars is the drive to move forward. I think we kind of got that. However, Saturn on the one side of this conjunction is, I think in this context, to do with lessons learned and wisdom drawn from the past. So the school of hard knocks, the school of experience, the practical experience that comes only with time. And so there's a kind of a maturity there. There's a coming into one's self energy that's coming through, which is saying that if you're going to do something, make sure that you're drawing on wisdom and experience. It may not be your own, of course, and this is in the context of starting something, a project, a plan, a self-improvement pathway, doing some inner work, whatever it is. Make sure that you're drawing on deep understanding and wisdom, either your own or others. I think that's the key with Saturn. And the Neptune energy is interesting because, as we touched on in our previous blog, Neptune takes about 165 years to go all the way around the constellations. So the last time he was in this position at 0 degrees or very close to the beginning of his own sign was around 1855, 56, somewhere there. I don't think any of us were alive back then, although some may be listening to this who, if you believe in the reincarnation cycle or the idea of parallel lives, we may well have been experiencing and have been alive at that time or have experienced what it was like the last time Neptune was here. That wouldn't surprise me, given the riddle of astrology and the mysteries of life. But the Neptune energy has the potential on the shadow side to, as I touched on earlier, to create a kind of a fog, a disconnection from reality, to be a little bit of it's a sort of a dreamer energy. However, the Saturn-Mars combination with Neptune is saying it's time to, or I have the expression, don't just build castles in the sky, bring them down to reality. So if the Neptune energy is providing insights or visions or a view of what humanity can look like going forward, or it can be coming through in the creative side. So Neptune energy in the positive often is really incredible art and creative expression. It's a very high frequency music or artistic or colors coming through in the arts. So you've got this very much Mars, yes, let's go forward. Saturn, let's draw on the wisdom of the past and learn the lessons of the past, and the Neptune kind of energy of creatively express in a way that speaks to our souls. So Neptune is difficult to talk about insofar as it's kind of non-specific, and a key to dealing with the Neptune energy is to surrender and submit to source and to take a leap of faith. So really that's interesting given what we were talking about before with Chiron.
Yep.
And what we were talking about earlier with the tension between planning and of Virgo and the desire to move forward with Mars and Aries. It's the same sort of thing coming through here, although this time I think it's a little more profound. It's not just about blindly moving forward. It's about actually understanding that, hey, I've learned some lessons. So this could be appealing to those who are a little bit older, but not just those who are older. It may be old souls too. So it's time to move forward and to bring some of your wisdom forward, and to put it on the table and make sure that the rest of us get to learn from it as well.
Yeah, and of course, Saturn also being the guardian planet of Capricorn, of where Pluto was sitting the next wee while. So, you know, there's some strong Mercury energies, and then the Aries, Mars, and then also the Saturn Capricorn. So it's they're all connected anyway by this beautiful grand cross. So that's really my takeaway, that we're really being told to move, you know, have your plan, learn from the things you've experienced in the past, but move forward with a kind of that go-getters, just go get them with a plan for your family, and sort out any trapped emotions, any baggage that you might have been holding on to. For what? Why would you hold on to them? You know, forgive yourself, forgive the other, and celebrate life and share the love that you have. So that's my takeaway message. What would your closing be?
Yeah, I'll go back to where I started. Because there's so much going on, it may be at this full moon, and given that it's coming hard on the heels of 2 eclipses as well, it may be useful, just in wrapping up, to sort of go back maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago when that penumbral eclipse, and the message of that was to do some shadow work, some inner work, as a key to our conscious evolution, as a key to our ascension, as a key to unlocking our potential. That was the penumbral eclipse. And then we had, of course, the solar eclipse, which was saying, the message was from the universe was, take what you have learned in your inner exploration, take what you have learned by going inward to understand, to deconstruct, to unravel where you might be blocked energetically, where you might be blocked mentally, where you might be blocked emotionally, where you might be blocked physically even, and push forward with some confidence. Aries is, of course, a bold sign, and the sun in Aries is about imbuing us with confidence. So take the lessons that you've learned, or that we have learned through the inner explorations, take the lessons that we've learned about what's going on in the big picture. So again, individually, but also collectively, and don't look back. I think that's a key piece. The other is that, as I said, I used the term tectonic shifts happening in the substrate of humanity. That is to do with this position of Pluto. And Pluto and Capricorn, which is the substrate of humanity, is our political systems, it's our economic system, it's the way that we set ourselves up as social structures, and you mentioned families, as cultures. It's the way that we organize ourselves in terms of, you know, mum, dad, and the kids live together, and then the kids leave home. It's all of those ideas. You know, demographics come into that as well. So this is the substrate. This is what Pluto and Capricorn is about. So not only are we talking about our individual experience of life, how we navigate and expand our consciousness by going inwards and doing the inner work, which was the penumbral eclipse. It's also about applying that to the issues of what's going on in humanity, where we're at these tipping points. And I think you'd be hiding under a rock if you didn't realize that everything's in play right now. The governance structures, technology, there's battles everywhere over consciousness. And so the grounding energy that we talked about before, in the middle of all of that, it's very important to come back to a strong connection with Mother Earth, with Gaia, and a confidence that we can connect with and talk to the source, that we can connect with the universal intelligence, we can connect with the Godhead, that we're not alone, we haven't been abandoned, and that everything that's happening is all cyclical. And these configurations of the sun and the moon and Saturn and Neptune and Pluto and Vulcanus and so on and so forth are all just signals. They're all just markers in time that are asking us to be aware that, yes, we might be going through our own drama and our own stuff, but the world's also going through drama and stuff. And it's really exciting to be alive right now. It's very, very energizing if we look at it with a positive mindset. And if we say, okay, cool, so I get to creatively express myself in a way that perhaps I haven't been able to before. I get to bring some ideas to the collective that maybe the time has come. That's the Saturn maturing energy. And this is all about timing. This is about, many of us have been waiting for these exact moments, and these two eclipses back to back, and now this with the Grand Cross. The universe is again saying it's time. You've done the work, or if you've done the work, it's time to move forward and to do it confidently, to do it boldly. And the next 12 months is going to be very, very exciting if we move forward with that sort of mentality and mindset.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you. So if you have enjoyed our conversation today, please share so in the comments and subscribe to our channel, share with your friends and family. If you would love to know your configuration in the 13 sign system, then you can order a chart from us. The links are in the description below. And we also give a small explanation of what your sun, moon, and rising sign mean. If you want to know more, then you can book a 2-hour natal reading. We're also on Facebook, Instagram, Telegram. And if you want to just listen, you can do so on Spotify. So thank you so much, David. Thank you. And we shall see you all in 2 weeks' time.
Namaste.
Ciao.